Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. Hello, everybody. How you doing out there? Doing well, I hope. I'm doing okay. Just finished yesterday another game session with my home group. I'll provide a recap for that here momentarily. I've also got a call to get to. It is hot where I am. It's not as hot today as it has been. We've got a couple of days of break, but we're into that part of the year where I wake up in a bad mood if I don't keep the air conditioning down overnight so that I sleep in a cool room with the fan blowing, and my wife is the opposite. So we're kind of she's on one side of the bed in the summer with an electric blanket and and dogs and cats piled on her, and I'm on the other side of the bed, maybe with a sheet over me with the a fan blowing on me, and we have the thermostat set down like 71 degrees. So uh, that's that's just the way it is. Oh. Also got, I don't know, this is sort of a tangent, but I got a new device. I don't know if I ever mentioned before, I have diabetes, and I've for a couple years now, I've worn an continuous glucose monitor, which is kind of a neat little thing. You change it every couple weeks. You put it on your skin, and it's sort of water waterproof once you get it on there, and you put it on your skin with an applicator so that it injects a tiny, it's not painful at all, a tiny little sensor under your skin, and that monitors your blood, the level of glucose in your blood. And you can use it. It comes with a device, or you can pair it with your phone with an app on the phone, and you can just always check your blood sugar without having to prick your finger and use a you don't have to carry an extra glucose monitor device around with you, and you don't have to carry all the stuff to prick your finger and then clean it up and deal with the blood. But I just started this week a second device. I don't know why they haven't invented yet to combine the two, but this is actually called a glucose patch, and it's a small glucose. It's basically, or not a glucose patch, an insulin patch. It's a small, like a small, tiny insulin pump, not much bigger than the actual glucose monitor. You have to take it out and fill it up with insulin, and it only lasts, 3 or 4 days at the most. But it then communicates with the glucose monitor to give you glucose, and unlike a pump where you've got to have like a tube sticking in you and things like that, again it inserts underneath the patch itself a tiny um a tiny I guess it's a tiny little filament or needle that will actually push the glucose in to your under your skin, or the insulin in under your skin. And so it's kind of neat. Like I said, I'm more bionic. We're headed for a cyberpunk future. It's my next step into to it's not a full implant because it's removable and replaceable, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Uh, so I'm one step closer to being a cyborg, I guess. All right, that's what's going on with me. Not really much to do with gaming, but kind of cool. And there you go. All right, well, I got a call from our good buddy Merc the Meek, so let's see what he has to say.
Hey BJ, great episode. Great to hear how the players are exploring Horror on the Hill, and the faction play in the module is great. So I'm glad they got to meet the Neanderthals and start making those connections. Yeah, I hope they have good luck with the ogres. What helped us a lot was having sleep, having a magic user with sleep. And most of the time we were encountering ogres one at a time. So I think sleep was like at the top threshold of being able to put the ogres to sleep. And yeah, when we did that, then it's just a matter of dispatching them. But yeah, sounds like fun so far. And I'm also really curious to hear how your Mighty Deed goes, that die goes, and also like the acrobatic stuff for the monk. So, if you want to talk about that more and how things are going with that, I would love to hear it. But yeah, thanks for putting out the next episode, and take care.
Well, thank you for that call, Merc. Good to hear from you. We didn't get to do much with the D6 in the last game because it just didn't come up. The player who plays the assassin character is was absent, as was the player who plays the monk, and our fighter types who were present just sort of forgot to do that, and I was busy focusing on some other stuff. So we didn't really get to explore the use of that in the game this time around. Hopefully, some of those players will be back next time, and we'll get another chance to do it. As far as the ogres go, and spoilers for Horror in the Hill for anybody who's been following along, because these guys are actually, Horror on the Hill is a basic module. It's for first to third level characters, and these characters now are around fourth level. I up the and they've got some nice gear with them. And also considering that we're using swords and wizardry complete, so because we've got like an actual ranger and uh, other classes that aren't just the basic uh, seven classes from BX D&D, they've got some other options that make them a little more powerful. So I swapped the ogres out for hill giants, and that sort of leads us into our recap. So thanks for the call, Merc. I appreciate you following along, and always we've got a nice dialogue going on here. So hopefully you'll enjoy the next installment coming up right now. In Horror on the Hill, again, full spoilers. There is a place where you can encounter something that's at really at odd contrast with the outside of the hill, which is this sort of creepy forest, right? Um, and it is a clearing with a whitewashed cottage with nice shutters and uh, curtains and a well maintained lawn with gravel pathways and flower gardens. And this is the home of two old women named Rosabella and Rosalinda. And the book simply presents them as sort of not super high level, but higher than the party level. I mean, I think around 5th or 6th level in the module. One's a cleric and one is a magic user. And so the way it's written, the party encounters them, and they if they're respectful, the women sort of offer them refreshments and hospitality. And one, their house is sort of bigger on the inside than it appears to be on the outside, which is in the module described as an illusion. And also the women, other than giving them a little bit of friendliness during the first encounter, there's this sort of you know, it anticipates that the player is going to ask these women about the surrounding area, what's going on the hill, anything you can tell me, and they basically won't give them anything for free. There's some more in exchange. There's some gold piece values suggested for different types of information or hints that these two women can give them. But they're really just presented as two elderly women living out here who are moderately powerful, so they can take care of themselves. But that really, to me, sounded like okay, an old woman in the forest with this house where it shouldn't be, and it's bigger on the inside and the outside. And they're talking about, you can't have anything for free. What do you give me that I'll give you? That really, to me, sounds like a fairy kind of a thing. Like that, these are um, some kind of hags or archfey or something along that line. So, and I didn't want them to be villains, but I thought that really fits more consistent with some of the themes I'm building in my home setting. That there's a lot more. I have a lot more ideas fleshed out about the Fey realm, the other world, and who comes from it, and the way that elves and goblin kind are connected to it, and other stuff like that. So I wanted to keep that alive. Particularly, in my plan has been as we get into this hex crawl, that's something that might be a recurring theme as they explore this area. So knowing that, I decided to just say these are. I'm not going to come out and tell the players, but I'm going to hint to them, and I'm sure they're going to figure it out that these are not actually two old human women who are just living in this creepy forest as pleasantly and peacefully as can be. But otherwise, go along with the suggestion of, well, they can give them gold or they can trade favors for information, and the general idea of being able to make friends if they're friendly and hospitable. So But that's not where we started. We started with the Neanderthals from last time, the cave people. We got in the habit of calling them cave people, sort of dropped the Neanderthal uh, term during the session. But these people of the cave had told them previously, been able to convey that whenever they leave, something much bigger than them, some sort of large humanoid, attacks them, and the party agreed to help. So they set out with, since I only had 4 players this time around, we had a ranger, the demon hunter, the illusionist, and a fighter. They decided to set out, so I had 4 other Neanderthals go with them, and I said these guys may not fight unless it just gets down to it. They're going to kind of be a guide and probably function more as sort of guides, torchbearers, those kind of. They're probably not going to get into the thick of a fight with you unless it's just they got to pull you out of there for a retreat. So they travel south down along the base of this cliff where the Neanderthals have their cave to these caves where this enemy is supposed to be. Uh, but as they start to go to the cave, the cave the cave the Neanderthals or the cave people point to a very clear footpath in the forest leading off in another direction, and they point down. They point like down the trail, and one of them says "Auntie, Auntie," and is trying to urge them to go down this path first. So they say okay, so they go down the path. And here's where they come to the clearing. And so what I say here, they meet Rosabella and Rosalinda, and they ask them to call them, you know, Auntie Bella and Auntie Linda. Again, kind of hinting at that these may be fey creatures. I didn't want to say Baba. That's a little too sinister with allusions to Baba Yaga, but same idea, right? So they invite them into college for tea. They accept the invitation. They go in. The cottage is like twice as large on the inside as it is on the outside. It's really clear to everybody that there's some magic at work here. And the players, these kids of all, they're familiar with some of those kind of legends and stuff. So they're tracking that this is some kind of fairy magic or fairy tale kind of thing. So they offer them some tea and then they offer some cookies. They bring out a plate of cookies, and so the sisters know about the cave people's plight, and tell the party that the enemy that they're about to confront are hill giants. They're not ogres. They're not, they're much bigger than things they faced before. They also don't like the giants. They say they're very destructive and disrespectful of the natural order of things. And if the party will bring them the head of Elor, the giant who's the head of the family, they will let this be a safe haven where they can come for rest and healing and stuff like that for as long as they're exploring the hill. And the party so agrees to do this. And the sisters give them what's listed in the module is a potion of invisibility, some magic user, some scrolls, including one of them is web. And there was supposed to be a scroll of cure light wounds, but since they didn't have a cleric with them for this particular adventure, I swapped that out for a healing potion. So they go back to the cave of the hill giants. They go inside. Of course, they get about 30 feet inside the cave entrance, and there's a big door, like huge door. And I actually, for this scenario, used some miniatures and some scale to show them how big the door is compared to them. The ranger, everybody hides. The ranger decides to knock on the door and see what happens, and nobody answers. So after waiting around and nothing happening, he decides he's going to try to force the door open. And I said, okay, so you tug on the door. It's a big door, but you're strong enough. You feel like you should be able to pull it open. He pulls on the little ring and it's stuck, and he can tell it's barred on the other side. He hears the creaking of this wood. But then he hears footsteps approaching. He's made enough noise trying to force this door open that he hears somebody approaching. So he hears the bar lift, and then this young hill giant opens the door and asks what he wants. So the module says that these are ogres. There's 2 parents and 2 juveniles. The juveniles are very aggressive and they fight with each other, and now they're supposed to have these new smaller things that they can bully and fight with. I think that's what the module is implying. So, but I rolled more of a hesitant reaction roll for this juvenile hill giant. For the juveniles I used ogre stats, and then for the adults I used hill giant stats. But he is kind of confused, so he offers him one of the cookies. He said, "Do you think I still had some of those cookies from the cottage?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So he's like, "You want a cookie?" So he gives this hill giant, probably pre-adolescent, probably the equivalent of a 12-year-old, um, a cookie or two cookies, and he's like, "Oh, I got cookies." So then I say, "Okay, well, now this other young hill giant comes up from farther in the cave and is like, 'What's going on?' Oh, I want a cookie." And then they start fighting. I know I'm not going to share my cookies. Come on, give me one. You have two. And so they start fighting with each other and shouting, and then they hear this loud female voice from farther down yell, "Hey, you kids, your father is trying to sleep. Keep it down. I told you to be quiet." So by now, the rest of the party has sort of entered the cave, not the Neanderthals, but the rest of the PCs. Uh, and the demon hunter Garrett attempts to help convince the young giants to take them to their parents. So the two giants lead the party farther into the cave. They come to a kind of an intersection where two tunnels intersect, and I say, "Okay, so you see their mother waiting. There's this large giantess, and as you approach, you see a goblin kind of come from a side passage, and kind of she leans down and it says something quietly in her ear, and then it runs back the way it came. They're like, "Oh, well, they have what do they have? Goblin like house servants? Yeah, they do." So now they're dealing with the mother, who also I rolled her reaction, also got a kind of a hesitant, confused, not immediately hostile reaction roll. So they start fast talking, and this is so cartoonish. But hey, we're talking about 17-year-old kids, and it was extremely funny. So I just went with it. They tell them they own a business that caters to giants, including like a resort where they can go on a vacation and get like pampered. And they're looking for customers. They're looking for initial customers that they'll give a very good rate to. Um, so she's kind of confused. So she leads them to this room that in the module is where the giants keep their treasure behind a couple of other locked doors, and says, "Wait here." Leaves a goblin to watch him, and departs. So well, I'm trying to think. Okay, what is she doing? She's obviously going to go get her husband. But what's going to happen in the meantime? Well, these kids are always good about never just waiting to see what happens. The ranger character. This is my son playing the ranger, by the way. He uh he says, "Hey," he tries to start up a problem with the goblin. The goblin's like, "I'm not talking to you," because they know like you can goblins is that with their fake connection, they can't blatantly lie, and two, they're always looking to cut a deal on something as long as they don't violate some other agreement or contract that they're obliged to. Goblin's like, "Oh, I'm not talking to you. We just wait." So he tries to grab the goblin to take him out. The goblin dodges and gets away. As a result of that Adam roll initiative, the goblin won and was able to slip away. He tries to throw a hand axe at it, misses. So then they're like, "What do we do? What do we do?" Well, then they hear the goblin screaming for help and some heavy footsteps coming back the other way. So they see the Elor, the head of the family, uh, coming down the tunnel, uh, as he's getting close to the door. And so again, we roll initiative to see who can react first. The Giants win, so Elor throws a boulder. There's three of them clustered in the middle of the room. Meanwhile, the illusionist has gone and hidden behind a rock. She's like, I'm not standing down in the open. Um, he throws a rock at him. He misses. I treated it more like a dodge, like a saving throw, as opposed to just an attack, because they're all the same, like standing right next to each other. So the demon hunter gets hit. The ranger and the fighter make their saving throws. The demon hunter takes some damage, falls down. The fighter tries to hit him with an arrow, misses once, hits the second time. Ranger runs up to fight him head on, and so they're facing off in the doorway, so that nobody else can get in the room. But the goblins are able to slip by. It's a wide enough doorway, and the way where the rangers chose to stand, the goblins can come around the other side of the giant and get in the room. So they start to rush the fighter and the demon hunter. Um, we start a new round. Party wins initiative. So the demon hunter pulls out the scroll, casts web, and the giant is stuck in the doorway now. Because the way the initiative order works, the ranger kind of does a little fighting retreat to step back out of the range of the spell. the spell sticks the giant, and it has a big enough range that it gets his wife, who's standing behind him. So they're stuck to the floor, but they've only got a couple rounds because they're giants. They're only going to be stuck a couple rounds before they just break free because of how big they are. But the goblins are now charging up at everybody else, but the spell goes off. And then the illusionist casts Phantasmal Killer. The way that spell works is that's a save or die. So and giants, I looked at the spell twice. I looked at the giant stats because I'm like, this is potent, but he rolled like a one on a saving throw. So it's just like, well, that's the way that sometimes the dice really do you a favor. Um, so I said, well, what do you think he sees with your Phantasmal Killer? Probably a bigger giant. So a bigger giant, nobody else can see this but him, right? This bigger giant appears, threatens him, attacks him, and he dies of fright. But he's kind of stuck in this spider web. His I rolled morale for the female giant, for the goblins. They all failed. So the goblins immediately drop their weapons and they're like, um, "In the event of the death of our employer, our contract is null and void, and there's no reason for further hostilities." So the goblins are done. Um, the wife screams and's like trying to get out of the web, and the two juveniles are behind her. What's going on? She's like, "Oh, pull me out of here! Pull me out of here!" So they go to grab her, and uh, the demon hunter's like, "Hey, hey, you kids! If you just back off and stay out of this, you can have all the cookies you want." So hill giants not being very bright and kind of by default kind of having a chaotic kind of evil alignment. I'm like, oh yeah, they'll turn on their mother, for free cookies. So they did. They set the web on fire, which burned her and then finished her off with I think the fighter finished her off with some arrows. Um, so then they're thinking, well, it's one thing to do this in the heat of the moment, but how long are they going to stand there? And they're going to really stand there and watch us cut their father's head off? No. So they look at the goblins. And they're like, hey, you know, we'll give you some gold if you'll we're going to cut this giant's head off. We'll give you some gold if you'll help us cart it back to the place we need to take it. And they're like, all right, well, we got nothing else to do. So um, the ranger and the demon hunter who've been interacting with these juvenile giants like, come on, we'll show you where to get the cookies. They go ahead a little bit and take them back towards the cottage with the two aunties, while the fighter uh, beheads the giant, and then the goblins help the fighter haul the. It's a halfling fighter, so it's not like she can just carry it back by herself. Uh, help them sort of haul, and they sort of are following at a distance, and they sort of step off in another direction, come at the cottage from behind, so that nobody's going to see the head of this giant. Um, so I said, well, they get back. I decided the you know first thing that the aunties see is the half of the party coming back with two juvenile hill giants, and they're like, I don't. Did you misunderstand what we were asking you to do? They're like, no, 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 wait. It's all. This is developing. Just give us a minute. Can they have cookies? So they give the get a plate of cookies for these two pre-adolescent hill giants. Go back around, verify that that they've kept their party. Here's the head of this giant. And also tell her the other adult is dead. So then they want to take. They decide they're going to adopt these two giants. Like the party's going to adopt them and take them back. And I'm like, how am I getting out of this? Because I do not want to keep up with what they're going to do. I mean, if I can't get them out of it, I got to do it, because players are going to do what players do, and you need to say yes as a DM, but that would have been a real headache. So, and I also thought like these two Fae are not going to be real keen on that idea too, knowing that these are hill giants. You might be able to turn them away from evil. They're not adults yet, but they are not too bright. They have bad tempers. They're very aggressive by nature, so they're like, "Well, let us keep them." Well, no, we want to take them. Well, let us keep them. So they come up with a trade that if the antes, when this little adventure is done, will help them really really befriend that flock, that pride of griffins that they had in the previous session. Then they're fine with the antes taking in the hill giants and deciding what to do with them. So then we get into talking about, gold for information. They can explain stuff, but we can't give you anything for free. It's really clear at this point that this is kind of a fey situation going on. Uh, they do give up some gold and learn that the building, the structure at the top of the hill, is an abandoned monastery that they've been trying to get to, and that there is a dungeon underneath that the goblinoids use as a base of operations. And then just to tie it to previous adventures, I said one of them makes an offhand comment about, a while back a troll passed through here and took some goblins and troops with him when he left, and they figured that is the troll that was one of the main antagonists in their last adventure. Uh, the antis do explain to them kind of for free. They said, we've it. In fact, when they first showed up at the beginning of the adventure, I had one of them say, "Oh well, we figured it was a matter of time before your kind showed up." Well, what do you mean our kind? Humans. Well, mostly humans. Not everybody in the party is human, but mortals. When the orcs that used to live in this valley departed, we figured it was only a matter of time before humans showed up and tried to settle. They've settled here in ancient times past, and we figured it was only a matter of time for you guys to come back, right? So they do give them some free information. They do say, if you're gonna, you and your allies, your community, or your nation, or whatever it is, are gonna come in and explore the valley. There's some things you probably ought to be aware of. Uh, the veil between the mortal world and the fairy otherworld is thin in places in this valley. It's full of fey creatures, even if you don't see them all the time. There are places where time and reality don't work the same as you would expect. The orcs that used to live here had kind of learned what places to avoid and how to live in a way that kept them clear of that. So if you're going to be moving in here, exploring, trying to settle, you're going to have to learn to live in balance with the natural world. And normally for humans, that falls to druids to help you to learn how to do that. There is a druid in the party, but the player wasn't present this time. So okay, well we better check with him. So we're setting up some long term goals for maybe a druid as we get higher level and into more something like domain play, right? Um, the young hill giants also tell them that they also had noticed when they were after they defeated the giants, the Neanderthals came in like they were looking for somebody, and they couldn't find them, and they found no evidence that there were any Neanderthals in the cave, living or dead. They got the keys and opened the locked doors and found the giants' treasure. There was nothing in there, but the young giants tell them that the parents actually captured Neanderthals or people of the cave people and traded them to the goblins for the service of their household servants. Of course, by now the goblins have dropped off the head and are long departed. Uh, so the party guesses that there some of these missing cave people are probably in the dungeon if they're still alive, and so another reason to go up and try to explore. So the next day they set out for the monastery. They random with a random encounter. They rolled 3 random encounters throughout the whole adventure with, and it all came up a horned lizard. So they never actually had to fight one. There it was always sort of neutral and non-hostile reactions. But they do run into the last random encounter that I rolled here towards the end of the session was a hobgoblin scouting party with a hostile reaction. So they it was a short fight. They dealt with them quickly. And as they came within sight of the monastery itself, when they found it, the uh, old women had told them how to get there directly. They see, okay, there's the monastery down the end of this path, and over across the way, there's looks like an overgrown graveyard. They decide to investigate the graveyard, and they get set on by a pack of ghouls. Um, the illusionist got paralyzed. The others fought off, killed the ghouls before they could drag the illusionist away and eat that character. And then I rolled how long is a ghoul paralysis going to last? 13 turns, which is 13 hours. Which I made a mistake. That's actually not correctly. So, but that's not correct. But I need to tell them I miscalculated because a turn is not an hour. It's 10 minutes. Um, but it's still going to be a long time, and they'd already had a full adventuring day, so they decided to take their paralyzed adventure and go back to the cottage and let her shake that off, and come back next time maybe with full strength when some of the other players show up to bring their characters along. So that's how we ended there. A lot of fun dealing with the hill giants. it turned into much, much, much more role playing than I thought it would. I thought they would just go in and pick a fight and be done with, which is one of the reasons I inserted hill giants in place of ogres, because they would have just curb stomped ogres at this level. They're powerful enough. But that was it. That was the adventure for this week. We're going to play again in a couple weeks, and we'll see how things go. Anyway, well, that's about it for me. Thank you for listening. Thanks again to Merc for his call. Make sure you check out his podcast, Merc the Meek. And until next time, wherever you're out there, take care of yourself and try to make someone happy today. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art is by Dave Bone. Be sure to check out his stuff at ironseer.com. You can leave me a message. I have my SpeakPipe account linked to the show description. You can also send me an email at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Just embed a voice memo, or I'll just read the text to your email during a future episode. Once again, thanks so much for listening.